namaste everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is kushalmehra. Okay, so the Olympics are done. Whatever was there for the Indian contingent, at least, and congratulations to everyone who won a medal. I know we don't win a lot of medals. Unfortunately, Indians don't tend to win a lot of medals, and there are multiple reasons for that. But that is not the discussion today. So, for those who don't know, today's podcast is going to focus on a very specific subset that was triggered because of the entire saga um, around what went down in Vinesh Phogat's case. Today, we're not even going to talk about what happened with Vinesh and why it had happened with Vinesh. Today, we're going to first talk about what weight cutting is all about. And I'll explain why I thought that we should do this is because the amount of rubbish that got peddled, whether people were, because this thing is politicized now. Listen, whether people like it or not, Haryana elections are around the corner, and the ones who want to use Vinesh Phogat's name to make sure they win an election are going to create stories around that. The ones who want the BJP to win are going to spin stories around that. I could care less about both. I only care about what weight cutting is, and I feel bad for Vinesh as a wrestler. Obviously, she's very much party to the whole political thing, and that's the least of my business. I still think she's a great wrestler. That doesn't change. Today, we're going to focus on weight cutting. And it's funny, when the last time I was in Delhi and I met Varun, Varun was actually in the process of a weight cut. So,
Oh,
Varun,
good times, good times.
good times, right? So, now, first of all, uh, tell everyone, so what do you do in a weight cut? How much time does it take? What precautions do you take? And what kind of tortures do you go through?
Well, the right word that you used there is torture because I mean, oh my goodness, you saw me. When you saw me, you should have seen. I was like a zombie at the stage, and oh my god, he was trying to talk, and I was like giving him mumbling words. It was really tough. It was really tough. But no, you're absolutely right in terms of all the media surrounding this, the types of things people have been saying. It's blown my mind. I remember you texted me. You're like, "Man, we need to do a podcast around this because the misconceptions that people have is just nuts, right?" I've seen people like, oh, she's so indisciplined. How can she eat a lot of food? She's getting fat on the day. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It doesn't take just one day to, get fat like that. So yeah, no, I'll definitely clear it up. So there's two types of weight cutting: the MMA weight cutting, and then the multiple day tournaments weight cutting. So obviously in wrestling, it'll be multiple days. So last year, I did the World Championships for the IMAF. So that was multiple days. So essentially every single day before you compete, you weigh in the morning, and then obviously you go on and compete. So last year, before day one, so let's say, the competition starts on a Friday, I weigh in on the Friday. So the Thursday before, it's very simple. You simply cut out salts, carbs, and you restrict your water intake. Why salt and carbs? Because these are what stores water, right? So I think I mean, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe for every gram of carb, you store about 3 grams of water. I think something like that. So you want to restrict it as much as possible. So the first day is fine, and you just cut it out, whatever excess weight. So let's say I'm weighing in at 70 kilos. I'm walking around at about 72 and a half kilos on day zero. I sweat it out, limit everything, and on day one of the competition, I'm at 70 kilos. I weigh in then. Now, people have to remember, I've depleted myself of nutrients and water, and I'm about to compete. So it's very important that before competition, I not only eat properly, I drink properly. So when I actually go up on stage to fight, I'm walking at around, maybe 73 and a half to 74, because you're just taking it back, right? And then, yes, you lose nutrients and you lose sweat through the process of the fight. But ultimately, what ends up happening is after you win, the next day when you have to compete, you're heavier than you were on day zero. So I said that I started at 72 and a half on day zero. On day one of the competition, I've now gone up because I have carbs, I have water in the system, right? Now you also have to remember I've just competed. So after competing, I can't even properly rehydrate, refuel. You're basically exhausted, right? Immediately from the venue, I remember last year, I went straight to the venue. I was the last fight of the day. So I went from the venue immediately to anywhere that had a sauna. Now, last year was unique because I was the last fight of the day. All the saunas were shut. So I had to do it old school, where I was on the treadmill. I literally took all the layers I could wear. I mean, a winter jacket, thermals, sweatsuit, everything. And I was just running on the treadmill, sweating it all out. And again, I've not refueled, I've not rehydrated post fight because I'm heavier than I was on day zero. Now I go into day two, I weigh in, after basically killing myself on the scale, and I have to compete again. And remember, again, I've depleted myself, so I have to refuel all over again. Now, by the time my second fight ends on day two, again, I have to repeat this whole process, but my weight has gone even more, gone up even more. So now I'm walking at about 74, 74 and a half. And this continues to be the case as the tournament goes on. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately for me, on day three, I didn't win my fight. But yeah, had I gone on to the finals, I would have had to cut like this every single day, and it would have gotten progressively harder as we went on. So when people say that, oh, she was indisciplined, how can she, drop the ball on this? I'm just like, man, I dare you to try just one weight cut, let alone multiple, right? And the one thing that I do have to mention is that for females, especially, weight cutting is a lot harder, right? Now, I'm not going to pretend and sit here and say that I'm a scientist and I understand all the medical reasons as to why, but I've had several female teammates, and every single one of them, they have difficulty when compared to me and cutting weight. So this is a basic explanation of how weight cutting works on a multiple day tournament, and yeah, we can dig deeper into it.
So, two, 3 points that I wanted to add as far as weight cutting is concerned. The biggest problem with weight cutting, as you rightfully pointed out, was men and women cut weight differently. And the horrifying thing is that for women, if they're menstruating, it's even harder. It's even harder. And there are now scientific reports and scientific data that backs these things up. And okay, let me explain. I think this was Delhi. I was at Varun's house meeting his parents, and Varun, all of us were sitting together. And I have to say, I'll never forget this. So everything is done. We're going back. And then I tell Varun, okay, I'm gonna leave you be, and I'll talk to you after a few days. And I remember Sanjeev telling me, why a few days? I'm like, Sanjeev, he's a fighter. I know he's gonna go and he's gonna be slightly bruised. So I understand what they go through because I love the sport and I follow the sport. I've actually tried a weight cut once in my life. Yeah, I was that psychotic. I actually wanted to know what MMA fighters go through, and I was like, "Oh, mar gaya main. ये क्या कर दिया मैंने?"
Insane.
I went
That's
through it.
insane.
Yeah, so I was
Now,
like, it's just torture, and people don't understand. So for to everybody who's mocking Vinesh Phogat for missing weight, shame on all of you. Shame on all of you. You don't know what it happens. I have physically, personally gone through it. It is torture. But why why do some fighters lose weight better and they cut weight better and they, I mean, I don't know. Even I think the amount of water inside the body, I was reading somewhere a comparison of men and women was done, and it's different. And so I want to read an excerpt. So women typically have lower muscle mass than men, which means lower glycogen, carbohydrate stores, and less glycogen associated water stores. This is since 2015. So
yeah,
depleting glycogen.
100%.
So, depleting glycogen is going to result in weight loss in women. More broadly, women typically have about 5% less total body water than the equivalent size male, thereby reducing the amount of weight that can be lost from water loss techniques. Women also tend to sweat less than males, meaning more extreme temperatures and techniques may be required to induce significant sweat losses. Again, this is Sims 2015. And this carries with it increased risk of heat stress and related complications. Lower average sweat rates may be linked to the fact women have lower total body water. On top of this, cutting water is likely to be more challenging when a female athlete is in the high hormone phase of the menstrual cycle. I wanted to share this too, i.e., just before menstruation. The cumulative impact of high estrogen and progesterone means women retain more water in their tissue and find it harder to sweat as blood volume drops. Again, Sims 2015. In addition, core temperature is higher, and this may increase the risk of heat stress from sweat loss techniques that involve raising the body temperature, for example, sweatsuits and saunas. So please try and understand different body styles respond differently, especially women have it toughest when it comes to weight cutting. I'm not saying men have a cakewalk, men also get tortured, but women have it worse than men. So have some empathy. I'm just trying to back what Varun said, because Varun goes through it himself. He's like, सालो मेरी इतनी बुरी हालत है, औरतों की मेरे से भी बुरी होती है और तुम उसका मजाक उड़ा रहे हो, उल्लू के पट्टे सारे के कहीं गधे कहीं के सब के सब.
No, it really drove me nuts. I'll be honest. Like when I'm reading all these things on Twitter, I'm like, the majority of you, first of all, don't even know how tough it is to go into the Olympics or represent your country in any stage, right? The stress of that alone is enough. Then you're adding on the weight cut and whatnot, all the politics. I'm like, come on, give this woman a break. She wrestled her ass off. She was incredible. Honestly, it was really sad to see that people were kind of mocking her, online. And yeah, like you said, like the study said, I've had teammates who are, more muscular and people who carry on more fat. And I'm talking about males. You can see the people who have less muscle mass on them, yeah, they find it a lot harder to cut weight through sweating than the person with muscle mass for the reasons that that study stated.
And it is very important that we have these discussions, is because obviously Varun is an active fighter. I am an active fan of mixed martial arts, and I care about this sport a lot. I care about the safety of fighters a lot. I've had discussions in the past surrounding CTE too, around fighter safety, around health benefits to fighters. If you go watch my discussions with Sham Sharma, I even use the example of BCCI, stating that BCCI is as private a body as it gets. And I wish the UFC actually, in the future, thinks about fighter safety in multiple ways, and health benefits for fighters who fight for the UFC for X number of years. But that's not the point. But I have one more question surrounding weight cutting, Varun. In your experience, why not, like Jordan Burroughs made this point, Varun, and do you think that is going to be the solution? Now, one championship has a different weight cutting method, right? They do not allow this, they do not allow this hydration technique, right? So what is it that one championship is doing different? And like Luke Thomas is not a fan of one championship and its weight cutting method. Luke
Yeah,
says
yeah,
that it
yeah.
makes no difference. In fact, Luke just mocked it. You remember five fighters recently missed weight in the one
Yeah, I
championship
was
too.
gonna bring that up.
Yeah, and Luke was like, yeah, so much for your weight cutting technique, and Luke was like going hard on them. But don't you think what one championship does, at least on paper, like, would you prefer that what one championship is doing?
I suppose it's like it's a right step forward in terms of having that so you're talking about the hydration testing, right, to make sure that these people aren't doing extreme weight cuts. It is the right step forward, but yeah, like you mentioned, there were fighters still missing weight, for one. Two, I believe there was not too long ago an entire documentary series on YouTube exposing whether the water testing and the hydration testing actually works, and its effectiveness. So yeah, in theory, I do think that it's a good practice, but I don't know if we're there yet in terms of the technology or the sort of oversight. Because again, we're talking about one championship here. you know, they aren't exactly known for having the most strict guidelines, let's just say. So who knows? Who knows how much they're actually following through with it? You know,
But now I want to ask your personal views on this.
right?
So before I ask you your personal views, let me explain why weight cutting is done. To people who are like, यार ये अपना वजन क्यों काट रहा है? अबे जाना लड़ जिसमें. Now the reason, ladies and gentlemen, is in combat sports, clearly, if you are from a higher weight category and you go into a lower weight category, you have an advantage. Because let me explain it this way. Let's say a heavyweight punches you, right? So the impact of that punch when you hit someone is going to be way higher than, let's say, a middleweight punching you or a strawweight punching you. It's basically simple physics and many other factors involved in it. कि एक 100 किलो का हाथ आके तुमको मार रहा है और एक 50 किलो का हाथ आके तुमको मार रहा है, तुमको किस में ज्यादा लगेगा, that kind of a thing. So a lot of fighters try to, go into a weight category that might be slightly lesser than their actual weight. So they push themselves through this brutal weight cutting process, and uh, wrestling allows that, mixed martial arts allows that, and boxing allows that. But what boxing does, in my opinion, Varun might disagree with me, what boxing does better than all the three, like there are three major combat sports in terms of what I follow, is wrestling, boxing, and mixed martial arts. What boxing does better than the other two is boxing has more weight categories. So when you have more weight categories, unlike, like, look at the UFC, right? They have barely got any weight. You have, what, you start from 125, then 135, 145, 155, then you go straight to 170. 170, you go to 180, 185, whatever, I forgot, it's either 180 or 185. Then you go straight to 205, and then you go to 235 plus, which is the heavyweight category. Now there are so many gaps here, unlike boxing. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to go and look at boxing. They have weight categories after every 2-3 kilos. And they keep on creating these weight categories because boxing is more sensitive. I guess there are more boxers available. It could be a supply demand issue, that there are not enough fighters in the mixed martial arts, but in wrestling, I don't believe that's the case. And what Jordan Burroughs had said was, the problem with the World Wrestling Federation, the wrestling federations, and the Olympic Committee is that they just don't create enough weight categories. Now Vinesh clearly was not supposed to fight 53 kgs. Maybe she's not that competitive at 53. Yes, obviously, when she gets the weight advantage, and ladies and gentlemen, again, Vinesh being 53 and going down to 50 and fighting is not cheating. Everybody does it. So, dum-dums, it's not cheating. That's what fighting is all about. Varun, wo bhi explain kar de ek baar, please.
Oh yeah. Sorry, no, that one drove me nuts as well. Like people saying it's cheating, it's cheating. Like anyone who says it's cheating has never followed combat sports. Okay, and that's fine. That's fine. Not everyone has to follow it. But then to just outright say it's cheating without understanding the sport is also nuts to me. But yeah, no, you kind of you hit it on the head there in terms of advantages, because when you talk about wrestling or MMA, right? Not only is there an advantage in punching, but you're having to carry extra weight, for the duration of the entire bout. And that weighs on you over time. That really weighs on you, and it makes it even tougher. And I remember, I think it was 2 years ago now, the Asian Championships for IMAF. I was walking around at 77. That's my natural body weight, and I remember I was like, okay, this is welterweight, so I'll fight at this weight. Little did I know that the other countries, they were all cutting weight. So by the time I get to the competition, I weigh in, no problem, not had to cut anything, no depletion, nothing. But by the time I get to the competition, I step in the cage, I look at my opponent, the guy is huge. he is massive, man. Like, he's this big Tajik dude. And I remember shooting on him, and I was like, this feels different. This doesn't feel as, he doesn't feel like the guys I'm used to shooting on. So yeah, those little few kilos makes a huge difference in the long run. By the time I get to round 2, I'm dead. I'm just gassed because the effort required to take him down was just significantly higher. So that's one. But then when we talk about adding extra weight classes, I actually agree. I think there has to be a 165 division. I think fighters have been very vocal about it in the past. I think, especially Dustin Poirier, Conor, and Chandler in more recent times. Uh, I definitely think 165 should be there because I think if you look at the average weight that a human being walks at, it's in that range of from like the 145 division to welterweight, and it's just such an odd weight to be walking around at. And then yeah, you're looking at middleweight to light heavyweight again, another really random jump. So yeah, I personally do agree. I do think there needs to be more weight classes. My only concern with that is just there being a sort of dilution, if that makes sense. Having too many championships, and then there being sort of less. How do I say? Less pride in winning the different titles. It gets diluted, if that makes sense.
I understand where you're coming from. So let me steelman your argument first. So what you're saying is if we have too many weight categories, then what we'll have is instead of having 20 fighters on a roster in one weight category, you might have 5 6 fighters, and then you'll have a world champion who has just barely beaten 5 or 6 fighters, right? Am I getting it right? I don't want to misunderstand you.
No, 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 exactly. Like you remember when I think it was Amanda Nunes, right? When she won the lightweight
145.
title. Oh yeah,
145.
or featherweight, whatever it was. Yeah, uh, yeah, she didn't have anyone her size,
Yeah.
and then you're just like, okay, is there any point of having this?
Yeah.
But in the case of obviously the 165, I do think you'll get a lot of people.
So to give everybody the context of what Varun is talking about as far as Amanda Nunes is concerned, Amanda Nunes, arguably the greatest female fighter ever in the history of mixed martial arts, the greatest, like by a country mile greatest. And what happened was Amanda was a 135-pound champion, and then UFC had to get Chris Cyborg in because they wanted Chris Cyborg, and they created the 145-pound division. 145-pound division में दो fighter थे. Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. So when Amanda Nunes goes around saying, I'm a 2 division champion, I repeat, Amanda Nunes is the greatest fighter ever by a country mile. But that's a little bit like saying, Mummy, Mummy, मैं class में first आया. बेटा class में कितने लोग थे? Mummy दो. So that was basically what happened in the 145-pound division. So I understand. But having said that, there is a sweet spot, is what I would say. Right now, what is happening, even in wrestling, as far as the Olympics is concerned, is we should have more weight categories. Uh, Burroughs has been talking about it, not just now. He's been talking about it for a while. He's been, shouting, screaming, and listen. When Jordan Burroughs talks about it, that's one of the greatest of all time talking about it. He's literally the peak alpha level of wrestling when it comes to this. Like, he is the alpha of the alphas, and Jordan talking about it, and Jordan's right. Now, there is one more aspect of the entire Vinesh thing that really, disappointed me, was the argument. I mean, I'm reading the Economic Times, and this is what the Economic Times has reported as arguments presented by Phogat's counsel. I don't know. I was really disappointed by the arguments. Varun, I want to read this for you also, and I
Oh,
want
I
to know
can't wait.
your views. Okay, so
Can't
I'm going
wait.
to read this verbatim from Economic Times. As reported by Indian Express, Phogat's legal team contends that several factors contributed to her being over the weight limit. They argue that the tight schedule between bouts and the significant distance between the the Mars Arena and the athletes' village played a crucial role. According to the report in the Indian Express, Phogat's counsel highlighted that the quote distance between Mars Arena and athletes' village and the tight schedule between bouts did not allow her sufficient time to adjust her weight, which had reached 52.7 kg by the evening of day one. I don't know why this is so unique to Phogat, because it applies to everyone else. The council also noted that, quote, the excess of 100 grams is extremely negligible, and claimed it could be attributed to factors like the bloating of a human body during summer weather or muscle mass increase as the athlete completed 3 times on the same day. They argued that this minimal weight loss excess did not confer any competitive advantage. Yeah, why do we do this and embarrass ourselves? Like,
Yeah,
why do Indians always do this? And again, this is not Vinesh's fault. Why are we
no, no.
embarrassing ourselves on the internet? अरे 100 ग्राम तो किया ना यार, adjust कर लेना यार. अरे बाकियों के लिए
You
भी तो था
can't.
ना.
No, I'll tell you this. So there's so many things to unpack there, right? So the first thing is the 100 grams. Okay, the 100 grams. Look, if you're overweight, you're overweight. Okay, and it's in the rules. You know what you're signing up for. As much as I would have loved to see her compete for gold, if she didn't make weight, that's on her. I do think that she shouldn't have been disqualified for day one or the tournament as a whole. She should have just been given a silver medal, right? I don't understand how her being overweight on day two impacts or gives her an advantage on day one, right? However, the whole distance from the arena thing, I just don't agree with that because, like you said, it applies to all the athletes. And not just that, like I mentioned, in my own experience last year at the IMAF Championships, I was the last bout of the day. By the time I was done, all the other fighters, they could have gone to the sauna, they could have cut weight. By the time I was done, all the saunas were shut. So I had to do it the hard way. I had to do it with the jumpsuit. I had to do it, by putting on layers. Now, no one's here saying that the other fighters had an advantage over me. No one's saying that at all. So I don't think that that's a good enough reason for Vinesh Phogat. And again, she did miss weight. So to be disqualified is legitimate. I just don't think that they should have taken away the medal or the silver medal at least.
Now that is something, yes, that is something I can be empathetic to. That okay, they should not have taken the silver medal away. They should have given it, and that is something that Jordan said. Listen, the rule is stupid. Okay, she could not make weight. She lost the bout. Give her the silver medal, and it ends there. Now that is something I'm empathetic to. That is something I can live with. But to say, oh, it's just 100 grams, please don't embarrass us. And I mean, don't embarrass us internationally, man. I mean, to actually hear Vinesh's team make these kinds of arguments is honestly embarrassing. Like, and I also want to spend some time. Why are they attacking Vinesh's team, like the doctors and everyone? Why are they attacking them? Like, they followed protocol, man. Sometimes you just can't cut weight. The body doesn't respond. Like, what is the fault of our team? Like, they're going after, what was his, Dr. Pardiwala or someone? That, I guess that was his name, who was involved. Right now I think the doctor must be going, मुझे क्यों मारा यार, मैंने तो कुछ नहीं किया. मुझे मेरे पीछे पड़ गए हो. Like
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add, yeah, what's the team supposed to do, right? And I've seen people get disqualified in front of me at the World Championships for being literally, I think 50 grams over. Our own Indian fighters at these World Championships have been disqualified in the past for being 100 grams over. Look, you know what you're signing up for. Okay, you know what you're signing up for. It's in the rules, and yeah, to go at the team is not done. I think again, what are they supposed to do? What are they going to squeeze her till she sweats everything out? I mean, after a certain point, your body has only so much water it can expel. I think I even read reports that she tried so hard, and after a certain point, nothing was coming out, and that happens. That happens, and if you can't make weight beyond a certain point, it's actually dangerous. I mean, at what point do you say, "Look, we need to take care of her health"? What if she has a kidney failure? What if she has an overheating? We don't even think about that. We're just like, oh no, we want that. We wish we had that gold medal. But you're talking about an athlete's life here. You're not just talking about the medals in this case.
So you mentioned the dangers of weight cutting. Now I want to read something again. This was from the nutritionheartbeat.com. What are the cons of cutting weight? There are many negative aspects. I'm reading this verbatim again, 3 paragraphs. People should know what athletes go through. There are many negative aspects to the practice of weight cutting that can affect combatant performance. One negative is the likelihood of remaining dehydrated, as this will decrease athlete performance. As many as 34% of combat sports athletes are dehydrated when they compete. This results in less total body water, reduced blood volume, and reduced total hemoglobin volume. Due to combat sports requiring the athletes to be in excellent aerobic condition, a reduction in oxygenation through less hemoglobin will negatively impact their ability to perform. Reduced glycogen stores is another side effect of weight cutting. Your body uses glycogen stored in skeletal muscle for energy, and weight cutting often depletes these stores during the RWL period. Replenished glycogen stores are important as they provide energy for the athlete and will negatively impact performance if left empty. The last con of weight cutting is that it can be dangerous if performed incorrectly, as kidney damage may occur. During the RWL phase, creatinine and blood urea, nitrogen, or bun levels are negatively impacted. Plus, if an issue occurs where the body's core temperature rises too much, heat stroke can occur and even lead to fatalities. Weight cutting is mentally and emotionally taxing, and negative psychological impacts on the athlete at a time when they need to be focused on the competition instead of dangerous weight cutting practices. I urge everyone who is going to be listening to this and have suddenly become interested in weight cutting, there is something called UFC Embedded series. So go on the UFC channel, and there is something called UFC Embedded. What they do is, before the fight, they go and take videos of fighters doing this or that. Go and check Khabib Nurmagomedov, and there are certain videos of Khabib Nurmagomedov. The man has never lost a fight. Some think that he's the greatest fighter ever. Some say it is John Jones. People like me say it's George St. Pierre. But
Dana
go and
White,
watch. Yeah.
Dana White, John Jones all the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. Dana is like always about John Jones, but go and look at Khabib Nurmagomedov when he was cutting weight. There are some videos available on the UFC Embedded. The torture Khabib goes through. Why I'm reading all these things is that you can say what you. I will criticize Vinesh's counsel for embarrassing us, but talking about "Arey 100 gram hi to hai na." But listen, Vinesh did what she could do as far as the weight cutting process is concerned. Now, whatever is happening right now in India, where yes, there are rallies being carried out, that is just because Haryana elections are coming around. Let's get very clear. This thing is politicized, and you cannot avoid it. But the point is, a thing being politicized has nothing to do with Vinesh giving it her best shot when it came to weight cutting. One has got nothing to do with the other, and I mean, it doesn't get more political than the Cārvāka podcast. I'm literally a political animal, but I will stand up for Vinesh Phogat where she deserves to be defended. And that's how I do things. But now, enough of the whole weight cutting saga. Anything else you want to add, Varun, before we jump into UFC 305?
I mean, before we jump into UFC 305, I think the best example in kind of recent times, aside from Khabib, is a guy I know we'll talk about, Alex Pereira, right? Like, look at how much weight that guy cuts. And I'm in the opinion that that is why he got knocked out so bad when Adesanya knocked him out. Because we've seen him take harder shots, but it affects your ability to your durability and yeah, your cardio, the rest of it. So that's all I'd really add. It does impact your performance. I've been a victim of it myself. So yeah, that's all I'd really add to that.
Yeah. So just to back you up, he fought at 185 pounds. So when he weighed for that fight, he weighed 185 pounds. When he rehydrated, ज्यादा वजन नहीं बढ़ा उसका, वो सीधा 210 के ऊपर हो गया. So imagine what he has done to himself, ladies and gentlemen. That man has basically sucked every single fluid out of his body. I don't know how he managed to do that. Alex Pereira should never fight middleweight again in his life. He should fight light heavyweight.
But he's talking about it. He's talking about. I mean, we'll get into it when we talk about the main event. But yeah, it's nuts. It's really nuts how people do it. There's all sorts of different techniques. Obviously, I mentioned the sauna, running on the treadmill. I'm sure the Russians have their sneaky little secrets. But yeah, you know, there's many ways. There's many ways. It's rough.
Yeah. All right. Now let's get into UFC 305. We'll start with the main event. Dricus du Plessis defeated Israel Adesanya by submission around 3 minutes and 30 odd seconds in round 4.
Yeah.
Forget round 4 till the first 3 rounds. Who did you had winning?
Okay, personally, I had DDP up 2-1. If I'm remembering correctly, I think he won first 2 and the third, and then the third was Izzy. And then I had Izzy winning up until the kind of abrupt ending. So yeah, I had a 2-1 personally. How about yourself?
Pretty much the same. I think it was 2-1 DDP before round four. Uh, Now, Izzy said that he made a silly error and that error cost him. But do you remember that moment where he's like, here, here, here? Do you remember that moment before he got
What?
taken down in round four?
In round four?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I don't remember that, but that would be sort of uncharacteristic in terms of when he keeps his composure. He's very disciplined as a fighter, and he was finding that discipline. I think after a certain point, when he was landing those body shots and finding his groove, he got a little overexcited. That would be my first guess. Because if you see the punch that lands, he gets hit by a left hook, which sort of caught him off guard, and he gets a glancing overhand that dropped him, you know? And then from there, it all just fell apart. And that blew my mind. I was like, what just happened? Where has this come from?
So what do you think has happened with Izzy? Now, he's lost twice now. He's lost to
Yeah, in
Sean
a row.
Strickland. He lost to Sean Strickland, and now he's lost to DDP. Obviously, he lost to Alex Pereira, but he got that one back. He beat
Yeah.
Alex, so it's even Steven there. But Sean, the I think DDP did not do a number on him as much as Sean Strickland did. And you have to remember, Sean was going striking with him. Sean did not take
Mhm.
him down. DDP always
No.
had the takedown threat. So, in my opinion, DDP in that sense always had an edge over him. And that's what got DDP the fight. I thought DDP was going to beat him. Full disclosure, I thought DDP was
Yeah.
going to beat him, and I did not think, because DDP has like god level energy and stamina. He's like a cardio machine. The guy, did you see he was barely breathing heavy in round four? He was
I
like,
thought he was looking. I thought he looked half dead. I mean, I feel like every fight he looks half dead, but then I
yeah, but
can't tell.
yeah, he's like Pete Sampras यार. वो Pete Sampras हमेशा अपनी जीभ बाहर निकाल के घूमता था और ऐसा लगता था वो थक गया है और फिर साला खेलता रहता था हमेशा Pete Sampras.
Yeah, he just finds that second win. You know what I mean?
Hmm. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so,
No.
but what do you think about? I want to compare this fight with the Sean Strickland fight. Sean did
Yeah.
not take him down. Sean just
No.
struck with him. Like he was right there, and Sean Strickland was clinical. Clinical.
Yeah.
Now, what is happening with Izzy now? Has he lost his sheen? He's still very good, but is
Yeah.
this or basically every single fighter has figured out what city kickboxing does? They have that feint game, right? City kickboxing is
Yeah.
known for excessive feinting. So for those who don't know, when you feint, it's basically you're pretending you're going to hit and you bite it every time. Your opponent thinks, oh, it's coming, and then you don't do it, and then the opponent responds. So if you feint a right punch, the opponent goes in a certain direction and throws in a counter in that mini second, and then you throw the other shot, and then you get your
Right.
opponent. And city kickboxing style was, city kickboxing is basically the gym under which Izzy, Volkanovski, and many others train, even Dan Hooker and many others train, and they had this excessive feinting style. Now, do you think they've been caught out now? Everybody has kind of figured it out.
Yes and no. I think first of all, Poatan, when he came through, when he knocked Izzy out, although he did get the fight back. If you remember the second fight where they fought in the UFC, even there, Pereira was damaging him and he was putting it on him. I think that in both fights, you see that when he gets backed up, he's not the most comfortable. And he does rely a lot on his head movement and his elusiveness. And when he gets backed up, one thing he likes to do is he likes to reset and take back the center, and circle. So I think if you cut that off, and then he gets a bit uncomfortable. We saw Pereira do that and ultimately knock him out. Even in the second fight, he did get knocked out, but Izzy was backed up against the fence, taking hard shots. Another day, maybe he gets knocked out again. I think Sean Strickland, anyways, has that style of marching forward. So naturally, that matchup was a bit, it just didn't favor him. I think once that blueprint has been set out, it just makes it a lot harder for a champion. I don't think Adesanya looked bad at all. I think he looked great. You just add DDP's willingness to stand in the pocket, fire randomly. He eats shots as well, going in, but he'll take one to land one, and then you add the threat of the takedown. I don't think anyone's ever taken down Adesanya like that, from at least from my memory. You know, those blast doubles, the timing on it to take him down, control his back, do all of that. I don't think we've ever seen anyone
No,
do
no,
that to
he was
Adesanya.
taken down a lot during the fight in the light heavyweight, the title fight where he had gone up the weight category.
Yeah, yeah, of course, against Blahovic, but I'm
Yeah.
saying in middleweight,
In
in
middleweight,
middleweight.
yeah, nobody has
Yeah,
taken him down like this.
exactly. So I think that definitely added to the knockout ultimately, right? That threat of the takedown, that's what opens up those sort of looping punches because you're focused, on the takedown. So yeah, I just think that it's a combination. It could be age, it could just be many people over the years. I mean, you have to remember this guy's been on top for how many years now? Every single fighter that's in the middleweight division has studied this guy. I mean, so extensively. So, I mean, if you go on YouTube now, if you just search up Adesanya tactics, there's so many YouTubers alone that have made striking breakdowns. So,
Yeah.
can you imagine your UFC fighter, how much you would have studied this guy? So, I just think a lot of it is understanding how to beat the system.
Yeah, and I think it applies to every sport. I clearly
100%.
remember. Do you remember that? Who was that mystery spinner? The first one, the first Sri Lankan who had come.
Uh,
जिसको कोई
I know you talk about
oh man, जिसने हमारी
Ajanta
तो
Pandit.
yeah, Ajanta Mendes. You remember उसने क्या दुखी किया था हमको first tour में? Nobody would understand what he's doing other than Virender Sehwag, who didn't care. He would just dance down the track and he would just smash him. And every other Indian batsman was struggling, including Sachin. And it was only Viru who was hitting Ajanta Mendes. But look at what Ajanta Mendes was in that tour and the first year when
Mhm.
people were not able to figure him out. And then everybody got his videotape. And
Yeah,
everybody basically figured Ajanta Mendes out, and then look at Ajanta Mendes' career after that. Just just kind
exactly.
of died down. And that's the whole idea about today's sport, whether it's MMA, it's any sport. There's so much tape on you that eventually your fighting style is going to be figured out. And I think that's what happened to Alex Volkanovski from City Kickboxing too. I
Yeah,
think Volk also basically they just figured Volk out. Eventually Volk has been exposed in that sense. Are they good fighters still? I think they're damn good fighters. They
of
might even
course.
become champions again. But
Yeah.
the 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 veneer of invincibility now from city kickboxing fighters has pretty much gone out. Would you say that?
Yes and no, because they still have some solid fighters, as we saw in the rest of the card, right? So they definitely have. I think they just need to make some slight adjustments. We've seen many gyms, even the Dagestanis for that matter. People are now scrambling with Islam Makhachev, whereas earlier when a Dagestani took people down, that was it, right? Like they're staying there for the rest of the fight. Poirier is the best example. When Khabib took him down, that was it, night night. Makhachev takes him down, he gives him a competitive fight and even cuts him open, lands some hard shots on him that were deadly. Volkanovski did the same to him. And I think just over time, styles get found out. So you have to adapt. I think Islam is a good example of a person who has adapted, right? He has that Khabib Dagestani style and that AKA style, but he's also worked tremendously hard on his striking that, I think he can stand with anyone in that division. I think it's now time for the guys in City Kickboxing to do the same. Dan Hooker on the card. We'll talk about him later, I'm sure. Dan Hooker, we saw an evolution in his game. The way that he was scrambling out, the way that he had takedown defense mixed in. I think that's ultimately what won him the fight against Gamrot. So, yeah, I just think it's time that Izzy does something similar.
Yeah, fair enough. So I have another question. um what did you make of the Kaikara France fight?
Oh, solid. Solid fight. Oh, excellent. I think that Erceg, I don't know how many people know of Erceg or if you've watched Erceg fight before. The guy's the real deal. He's really good, this guy. So to knock him out in that fashion was crisp. It was sweet. Because I think Erceg started the fight well. He was using his range, he was composed, calm, and then just bang out of nowhere. You get that overhand, and it was that. That was that. And for me, I think a flyweight to hold that much power is insane.
Yeah. So, but the knockout was fun. I mean, that was fun.
Of course.
The one fight, all right. So, what did you make of Gamrot versus Hooker, and both Tuivasa versus Rosenstrike?
I mean, like I mentioned with the Hooker and Gamrot fight, have you? I mean, have you seen much of Gamrot's fights?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen him fight.
You have, right? So anyone who's watched Gamrot fight will tell you this guy's got world class wrestling and grappling altogether.
Hmm.
Right. The best example being his fight with Sarukian, which he actually won. That's
Hmm.
probably the highest level of grappling you'll see. Him versus Sarukian, even his fight with Benil Dariush, the scrambles there. So, like I was mentioning when we were talking about Adesanya, the evolution of Dan Hooker to be able to sort of defend those takedowns and then put it on Gamrot. And to Gamrot's credit, everyone criticizes him, says that he's a boring fighter and whatnot. And in the past, he has been. You can argue that he has been, but he stepped up. He was willing to trade. He was landing his own shots. So I thought, I mean, personally, that was my favorite fight of the night, just because of the back and forth nature of it. I don't know what you thought of it.
I enjoyed that fight, but I actually did not understand what the hell happened in Tuivasa versus Rosenstrike. Like, what
Uh,
what happened there?
Man, he's now on a five fight skid.
Yeah,
Tuivasa.
yeah.
Man, I think enough shoeies. I think that's what I needs to be done. Enough drinking beers out of shoes. I think he needs to be a bit realistic with his matchups now. There was a point where he climbed up to top three.
Mm-hmm.
But now, man, Rosenstrike's no joke. This guy's a serious kickboxer, and if you're gonna fight at his pace, a sort of slower pace, it only favors him. We saw what Ngannou did to Rosenstrike, just swarmed him and basically knocked him out in what 10 seconds.
Mm.
You have to approach him like that. You have to
Yeah.
approach him like that.
So the next fight was welterweight. Li Jingliang defeated Carlos Prates by knockout. No, sorry, or the other way around. Carlos beat Li Jingliang by
Yeah.
knockout in round two. That was another fun fight. I enjoyed that fight. Which one? Which fight did you enjoy in the prelims and the early prelims? Which one was the fight? Honestly, I enjoyed the Junior Tafa fight versus
What the
Gordon.
heel hook?
Yeah, I enjoyed that. That was a good move submission.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you. I mean, what did you hear when you saw the live telecast or when you watched it back? Because on first glance, there was a lot of controversy. He screams, right? But the argument is that he never said tap. So I'm just trying to think. I don't know where I sort of stand with that. I'm curious where you stand.
No, I think if he doesn't say tap and screams, it doesn't matter. You keep the
Okay.
fight going. I mean, I don't know what Big John would say to that. I think we have to go with what Big John McCarthy says eventually because he's the one who made the rules.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, because if you see at the end of the fight, he throws his gum shield. I
Yeah.
think he even smacked what's his Walker was his name. He smacks him in the face after the fight. He was not happy about it. But I'm like, man, you're screaming. I suppose in that situation, the ref's job is to protect you. If he thinks your knee is about to get ripped off, then
Hmm.
you
I
know,
get it. I get what the point you're making, but this is that classic spirit of cricket argument, right? We keep talking about the so-called imaginary spirit of cricket every time. I think I think it's fine. Either way, I think both the arguments are fine. It's not a big deal either way, is what I'm trying to say. But I think if
I
it's in
get
the rules,
you.
it's in the rules. It doesn't matter. But what are the rules? Nobody knows the rules of MMA. At least I don't know. So I don't know. Ricardo Ramos beat Joshua Colibao by decision in three rounds, and then
That was a
um,
sick fight.
yeah, Casey O'Neill, good for her. She won the decision against Santos. I like this KO. Did you see the Jenkins KO?
Which one is that? Sorry, just.
Jenkins versus Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns should
Oh
not
yeah,
be.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Herbert Burns should not
Oh
be.
man.
He should not be fighting. I don't know how else to say this. He should not be fighting.
I mean, it's just like at this point, maybe not in the UFC. Yeah, I
Yeah, he
think he's
should
on a
not be
skid
fighting.
himself.
Yeah, he should not be fighting, man. I don't know why people just feel ashamed to say that. He should not be in the UFC. He should not be fighting there. It's just terrible to see what is happening to that guy, and it's just the levels are different,
Yeah,
and we should not be encouraging anything of this sort. Tom Nolan in the early prelims beat Alex Reyes by
Oh, that
decision.
was a good fight. Fun
Yeah,
fight.
Song Kenan won against Rick Glenn again by decision. Another good. This was the first one. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw this.
a
Jesus
banger, banger.
Aguilar versus Stuart Nicole by submission in round one. That was a good submission, man.
Oh, so quick! He jumped on that neck like it was it was there. He just
That was
squeezed at
very
it.
impressive.
But
Super impressive.
just to go back to one fight, did you see the Song Kenan fight? Right, I think he gets hit within like the first 20 seconds. He got dropped, right, and then he comes back, and I don't know if you remember the hematoma. What is it? What's his name? I keep forgetting his name. What was Kenan's opponent's name? I forget.
Kenan's opponent's name.
Yeah,
Wait.
Song Kenan.
Rick Glenn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you see the welt on his head? That was disgusting. Absolutely
Yeah, but
disgusting.
nothing beats what happened to the boogie woman,
Joanna.
Joanna. You remember that? That damn thing?
Yeah, mega mind.
God, that was
No, that was
scary.
disgusting. No, but that was a sick fight. That was a really sick fight.
Yeah, but overall, what do you how many points like out of 10? What do you give this card? 3 or 5? Listen, 303 and 304 were a disaster. I shared my views with you. Disaster. I did not enjoy that shit show.
Yeah. No, I mean, especially after those guys. Personally, I enjoyed this card from start to finish. I think there were some
I
really
love
good
this card.
fights.
I'll give this card a 8 out of 10. I love this
Yeah,
card.
yeah, I agree with the eight. I think an eight is yeah, eight is fair. Eight is fair because this was from everyone came to fight. Everyone wanted to go for the finish, or most people went for the finish. We had some crazy moments, even in the prelims. I'm blanking out on names today, but there was the guy. He ends up winning the decision, but in the first round, he was in a tight rear naked choke, and he gets out. Let me just get his name. Um, Let me get his name. Yeah, Kulibao. Kulibao. In the first round, he was getting his head squeezed off. Somehow manages to get out, and then puts it like he really puts it on for the next 2 rounds and wins the decision. That was for me. That kind of sums up the rest of the card. Everyone's there ready to fight. No one's giving up. You know.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to wrap up in a few minutes because I'm in an Airbnb and I have to vacate this Airbnb.
Okay.
So yeah. So I'll take a couple of questions. So somebody has asked, 165, 175, 190 makes the weight jump slightly easier but reduces the issue of shallow divisions. No. What's your opinion?
Reduces the issue of shallow division.
No,
But
I,
yeah,
I
like,
think we need a 165, 175, 185, 195, then go 205 or 210, and then go heavyweight. I think that's my opinion. I don't know what yours is.
like you said, I think I am happy with a 10-10-10 division. Although there is a risk of dilution, it makes it much easier for the fighters, and I do think that having smaller weight cuts just increases the quality of fights overall. So yeah, I personally hope they do eventually change the weight classes.
Yeah, and the next question was thoughts on the 1FC approach to weight cutting.
Yeah, so
can I can I share
yeah,
something? Can I
yeah,
share?
go for it, go for it.
Okay, so this was Luke's tweet. I think so if somebody asked, this was the best answer. I think Luke Thomas gave. So this was Luke's tweet a few days ago. I don't know if you guys saw. For those who don't know, Luke Thomas is probably, if not the best, I think Luke is the best MMA journalist. I think Luke is one of the best sports journalists. Period. I think Luke, Gerald Kimber in cricket. These are some of the gems we have in sport. And this was on 4th July 2034. One fight night, 23 weigh-ins all over. 5 fighters wins contracted weights or failed to pass hydration. And all Luke said was, when you solved weight cutting.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I just don't know how much oversight there is in this whole process. One FC, it's got some great fighters, but they put on great fights, but reputation wise, not exactly squeaky clean.
Yeah, I think One FC makes a lot of claims that cannot be verified independently
Exactly.
about the numbers, about the quality of X, the quality of Y. I mean, just putting it out there, we cannot trust One FC about many things. But before we wrap it up, I want to just spend 5 minutes on 303 on 304. What? You know
Yeah.
my views. I'm not going to share my views. I want to know your views.
Okay, wait. I'm gonna have to pull up the card. So, I mean, first of all, for me, Bilal Muhammad is looking real juicy. Man, the guy's I've never seen him look in that physique in my life. He looked jacked. He was absolutely jacked out of his mind.
Hmm.
But in terms of performance, great performance. You know, that's the way you make a statement. The mixing up of striking, wrestling, I think he looked like a deserved world champion. Great performance. And then, of course, there was Tom Aspinall in the co-main, uh, putting Curtis Blaze to sleep. Brilliant. I thought those were brilliant. For the rest of the card,
It's nothing, man.
again, you're fighting at what, 3 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah, so why
So
did they do it? Why did they do that card? Why did it do? Why can't they just do it for British audiences? That's my whining. The fighters didn't ruin that card. UFC ruined that card.
100%, 100%. I mean, look, I was in the UK at the time, right, when this whole thing was going on. I was so excited when they announced UFC Manchester. In fact, I was even planning on, potentially going and watching it. When I see it's at 3 a.m., not only are the fighters going to be dead, but at some point, the crowd, as much as they love to party in the UK and
Did
especially
you
up north in
did
the
you see the
UK,
people sleeping in the audience?
yeah, it's like, yeah, who planned this? What did they think was going to happen?
Oh,
You know,
it was ridiculous. Listen, I agree with you. I think Bilal looked clinical. That's the word
yeah,
I'm using. Clinical,
100%.
so smooth, so good. Bilal Muhammad. I've never seen Bilal fight better than this in my
Neither.
entire life of watching Bilal Muhammad, and I've almost watched all his fights now for the last 7 years, 8 years. I've
Yeah,
watched a lot of Bilal's fights.
yeah.
Bilal has never looked better. He is the most improved fighter I've seen in a long, long time. Like,
Oh,
my
without
goodness,
doubt.
Bilal Muhammad has improved so much. It is, mm, it is, it is
Unreal.
unbelievable.
I mean, look, he did what he did to Leon, what Usman couldn't do twice, and Colby couldn't do. These are wrestlers with loads of credentials, right? This guy's never competed in wrestling, or not like to the level that Usman and Colby have, and he ragdolled Leon. Do you remember when he just high crotches him, lifts him, and dumps him on his head,
That
right?
was round two or round one? I forgot. That was
Yeah,
round
I
two,
think it
right?
was round two. But like,
Yeah,
come on, who's doing that to Leon Edwards? No
nobody.
one's done that to
Even
Leon
Kamaru
Edwards.
couldn't do it, and Bilal did it.
No,
It's the timing. It's not the power. It's the timing. How many times you've drilled that move? How many
yeah,
times you've drilled
exactly,
it?
exactly, exactly. And he mixed up the striking very well. No one wants to stand with Leon. It's he's known for his KOs. So Bilal, especially having fought him before, and he did get touched up in the first fight. And credit to him, he really stepped up when it mattered.
Do you think Leon deserves a rematch?
That's a good question. I think he should win at least a fight. I think he needs to win at least one, just because I think it was a shutout. I think Bilal showed that he was a lot better as a fighter in that fight. There's so many fighters that are now coming up in the welterweight
Shafkat.
division.
Shafkat.
Yeah, exactly.
He should get it.
Shafkat's there.
Just give it to him.
Oh,
Just give it to him.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Just give it to him. Shafkat's there. We forget about Jack Della Maddalena. Ian Gary's climbing up there. As much as people want to hate on Ian Gary, the guy can fight. The
Yeah,
guy
I
can
mean, who
fight.
cares about his personality? That's not up for grabs over here. I care about the fighter.
Exactly.
I don't know what the fighter does. I don't care. I'm just looking at the fighting.
Right. Yeah. And now you know what? Especially with a new champion, who says Usman can't get back in there? You know, Kamaru, yeah, he lost to Leon twice, but it's a completely new champion, new challenge. Who says Usman can't get back
Yeah,
up in there?
and I don't think so. Kobe Covington is going to be coming back soon. I think his era is done pretty much.
Yeah, I think he's sort of past his best days.
Yeah,
As much as it pains to say.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he was a good fighter to watch again. So, what did you make of 303 before
Three or
we
three.
wrap
Okay.
it up?
So I got to pull up that card. Let me just see. Also, sorry, just to add to that 304 card, Paddy Pimblett getting that
Yeah, but why did
first.
he? Okay, why did Bobby Green try to take him down? Like, who does that? Who? Why would Bobby Green of all the people try a takedown?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit random, especially given that we've seen Paddy Pimblett look a bit sort of scratchy on the feet, and King Green is amazing. Sorry, King Green, not Bobby Green. uh, he looks, he's as slick as a striker, in that division. Why he shot, who no one knows, but that finish was great.
Yeah,
Paddy was so quick on it, and now he's a legitimate top 15 fighter.
yeah. So, as far as 303 is concerned, obviously Pereira was brilliant against Prohashka,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
uh, what did you make of the Michael Venom Page versus Ian Gary fight? That's what I wanted to ask you before we wrap it up.
Oh yeah, yeah. Since we were talking about the welterweight division, look, Ian Gary, he's coming up. He's obviously shown he's a good striker. He can put anyone out. He can point fight. He's adaptable in the striking. The one question that everyone wanted answered was how good's his grappling, right? And you're coming up against a guy like MVP, who's obviously incredible with his striking. And yeah, I think those questions were answered. He was able to take down a guy like MVP, keep him down, and he was even able to touch him on the feet. So I think he showed how well rounded he is. There's been so many fighters that have tried to take down Michael Venom Page, out grapple him, and not many people have succeeded. So for Ian Gary to not only be able to stand with him, but to out grapple him, he's the real deal. He's the real deal. Whether it makes people happy or not.
And any other fight in 303 of that stood out for you? Any other? Like, I was disappointed by the Dolice and Anthony Smith fight, to be very honest. I'm a big Anthony Smith fan. I really like him as a commentator too, but that was really disappointing to watch. I don't know. I did not enjoy that fight.
I kind of forgot that. I forget what happens. If I'll have to go back and watch. But
Nothing
if you
happened
talk
in that
about,
fight. That was the problem.
okay, yeah, well, there you go. I think Anthony Smith is it's coming towards the end. I think he just needs to take fun fights now, or hang it up. I don't see him becoming a champion. So he's had a good run, but he's towards the end. But if we're talking about 303 in the fights, in the early prelims, there was a guy called Ray Soroya.
Yeah.
I think in the past I've talked to you a lot about the Japanese fighters and how they're coming up through the UFC. Man, we saw in the Olympics the Japanese wrestlers. How good were they? They were
Yeah.
incredible, right? We're seeing how good their wrestling is, and now it's about time that they jump into the UFC and take over. It's only a matter of time, really. They're so good. They are so good. And so
Yep.
it was him, and then do you remember Diego Lopez and
Yes.
Ige, the
Yeah.
4 hour
Danny. Yeah, that was a great fight. That was a great fight.
4 hours notice.
Yeah.
4 hours notice.
Yeah. I think
Imagine that.
honestly, I hope they get paid a lot, but
Yeah.
I would not recommend such fights. I mean, it's ridiculous. But hey, it is what it is. Anything
Yeah.
else you wanted to talk about before we wrap it up?
But yeah, I think that more or less covers it. I'm looking forward to the Sphere. The Sphere is coming up, so I'm very curious to see what they do. They've been hyping it up so much that it can only be exciting.
Yeah, I agree. That some good fights are lined up now, and if you're a mixed martial arts fan, I think you can look forward to the rest of the season. It's really going to be a lot of fun. But as always, Varun, pleasure talking to you. I know we were not able to do a podcast in between because you were fighting. I wanted you to rest completely,
Yeah, yeah.
and So everybody, if we suddenly have a break, always remember Varun is fighting, and even if Varun wants to do the podcast, I will not let him do it. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair
Varun
enough.
never backs off the podcast, but I don't let him do it because I am very clear. His recovery is more important than this podcast. So let Varun relax, and when Varun gets fine, I bring him back on the podcast. So everybody go follow Varun on X. And
Thank you.
Instagram, his Instagram handle and X handle are there in the description of the podcast. So it doesn't matter if you're listening to this on audio or watching this on YouTube, Facebook. Go follow him on Instagram and on X, or whatever you call it, Twitter. As far as I'm concerned, the Cārvāka podcast, you know the drill. The Cārvāka podcast is a member driven podcast. So if you can, please become a member of the Cārvāka podcast on YouTube or on Patreon. You can also send your donations directly through UPI on kushalmehra at ICICI. You can buy the Cārvāka podcast merchandise on kushalmehra.com or on Kadak Merch. If you don't do anything of that sort and you're an audio listener, just leave a rating on your audio platform, or like this video on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, or leave a comment in the comment section. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste, take care, bye bye.